extraneous material into the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, these have been solemn days, and not just because of the important legislation before us. Yesterday, just steps away from where we are now standing, a group of protesters engaged in dangerous and derogatory behavior toward 4 of our members. I believe the attacks yesterday were a step back for this country, a stark reminder of where we used to be, and a reminder of how much further we must travel to fulfill the promise of equality. It was only 2 weeks ago that my colleague John Lewis marked the 45th anniversary.
The gentleman from Florida is correct. The House will be in order. The gentlelady from New York will suspend. The chair would ask all members to please take their conversations off of the floor and allow the gentlelady from New York to be heard. The House is still not in order. In the rear of the chamber, members will take their conversations to the cloakroom and off of the floor. The gentlelady from New York.
It was only 2 weeks ago that my colleague John Lewis marked the 45th anniversary of Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama, and yet this civil rights icon was accosted yesterday while walking here to cast a vote. The use of racist, homophobic, and inflammatory rhetoric, and the reports that the protesters who were gathered on our East Terrace Plaza attempted to spit on a member of Congress is heartbreaking. This type of display should alarm every American and encourage us to work harder to put aside the hateful divisions and to come together to bridge the volatile spirit that is tearing apart our country. The anger isn't just contained outside the Capitol. Last week, someone hurled a brick through the window of my district office in the dark of night. We must step back to remind ourselves of why we are here. I would like to show an incredible document given me this week by the National Archives from the collection of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's original records. As the father of Social Security, Roosevelt has an honored place in this battle to create a national insurance plan for our country. This message, dated January 23, 1939, over 70 years ago, was entitled "To the Congress of the United States," talks plainly about the need of the government to provide health care for its citizens. It was recognized at the time comprehensive health care program was required as an essential link to our national defenses against individual and social insecurity. Roosevelt wrote, "The health of the people is a public concern. Ill health is a major cause of major suffering, economic loss, and dependency. Good health is essential to the security and progress of the nation." And I would like to read directly because I think the familiarity is overwhelming. "I've been concerned by the evidence of inequalities that exist among the states as to personnel and facilities for health services. There are equally serious inequalities of resources, medical facilities, and services in different sections and among different economic groups. These inequalities create handicaps for parts of the country and the groups of our people which most sorely need the benefits of modern medical science. The objective of a national health program is to make available in all parts of our country and for all groups of our people the scientific knowledge and skill at our command to prevent and care for sickness and disability, to safeguard mothers, infants, and children, and to offset through social insurance the loss of earning among workers who are temporarily or permanently disabled." I will tell you that, Mr. Speaker, that reading from that piece of paper with his hand notes scribbled on it absolutely takes my breath away. But it is a reminder that eyes of history are watching us. Future generations will look at what we do today, and it will be a guidepost to who we were as a people. The effort to reform the healthcare system goes back to at least Theodore Roosevelt, that great president who campaigned in 1912 by promising, quote, "We pledge ourselves to work increasingly in state and nation for protection of home life against the hazards of sickness," end quote. Still later, Harry Truman tackled reforms, as did President Clinton during the 90s, a battle that I was here for. Before that, the last broad legislative rewrite was led by President Richard Nixon. It's remarkable to me that even after all these years, our final bill may end up being less progressive than the plan that Nixon would have supported. Yet still the forces of the other side whip up opposition. I want to share a story I heard from a constituent in Buffalo. I'll be very brief because these are heartbreaking stories are nationwide, but it is about a young man who moved to New York from California. In California, his insurance only allowed him to visit the emergency room for seizures. When he got to New York, his insurance did not cover that at all, except in New York City. So his father has to drive him back and forth from Buffalo to New York City, and he said, "We are slowly going poor." Our bill covers an estimated 32 million Americans in a fiscally responsible way that improves Medicare benefits, holds insurance companies accountable, and helps small business owners with coverage. We are finally gaining ground against insurance special interests. Small businesses, the backbone of our economy, will get tax credits if they make health care coverage available for their workers. We offer free preventive care for people on Medicare. We help people who would retire at 55, 10 years before they are eligible for Medicare. And we ban the lifetime and yearly limit on coverage. All these provisions have the potential to transform the way that we deliver health care in the country. The fight has been long and contentious, and the public has been grievously and purposely lied to. And this week, the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan and objective and unbiased, estimates that we will cut the deficit by $143 billion over the next 10 years and $2 trillion over the following 10. Now, what do our opponents say? That we can't afford this legislation. The fact of the matter is we cannot afford to do this legislation. For the 100 years we've worked toward this goal and all the obstacles, we are here today to do our job. And Harry Truman said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, I consider the Rules Committee is the kitchen of the House of Representatives, and I am proud to be the cook. And I'm proud to stand up and say, that this bill is the right thing to do and the time to act is now. I am delighted to vote yes today, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from New York reserves the balance of her time.